Hey everyone, happy Wednesday. I am jumping on today to talk about a couple quick things, but first, I'm in my husband's office today, so I have to show you. We have our kids' pictures up on the wall right there. Not sure if you can see that. Anyway, hope you guys are doing great and having a great week so far. I wanted to just share a couple things. I have a fun announcement, but first I wanted to just share one quick tip to help any parents out there that may have a child that just struggles with eating or struggles with mealtime. And if you are able to join live today, I would love to hear from you. What are some things that maybe you struggle with your kids at mealtime? I know a lot of things that I tend to hear are kids that just complain a lot about what's being served or don't want to eat what's being served, maybe refusing to eat, or kids that seem to just have a hard time being at the table and being around food. Those are all different kinds of things that can happen at mealtime. So I'm just sharing one super quick tip that you can start implementing today to help your kids feel better about eating. And it's really simple. But what's funny about this is that it can feel really intimidating. So a lot of parents might stray away from this or might be hesitant to try this. And that is serving your meals family style. So that means putting all the food out right in the middle of the table and allowing your child the chance to serve themselves and to plate their own food. So I'm going to give you 4 reasons why that can help your child feel better about eating. But first, just talking really quick about why this can be hard for parents to implement. And I think for many families, not to overgeneralize, but a lot of the families that I've worked with just feel like it's easier if I can plate my child's food and serve them. Letting your child plate their own food almost sounds like a recipe for disaster, depending on how old your child is or how many kids that you have. Oftentimes, meal times can feel just really chaotic. Hey, Kel, thanks for joining. So a lot of parents want to just make it simpler, and a big way that we often do that is by just plating our kids' food for them. So, just putting what we have available on their plates, giving it to them, and that's it, and not really letting them have a say in what they want to eat. And another reason parents tend to do this is because it often comes from a place of fear. Like, we worry that if we don't plate our child's food, that they won't try the things that we're serving, right? So a lot of parents implement rules like you have to take one polite bite, or you have to try at least one bite of everything that's being served at the table. And that can actually make things a lot harder for kids and make mealtime more stressful for them and make them actually more resistant to trying different foods. So this is actually a different feeding tactic that might seem counterintuitive because it's really kind of the opposite of the things that I just described, and that is letting your child be the one who gets to decide what they want to put on their plate and what they want to eat. And a lot of parents that I talk to about this feel really concerned and just say, well, if I let my child plate what they wanted to eat, they wouldn't put anything on their plate, or they wouldn't want to eat anything. Hey, Erica, thanks for joining. So, I'm definitely going to address those questions. And I think those are really valid concerns. Like, if you let your child be the one to decide what they want to put on their plate, what do you do if they don't want to put anything on their plate? And that's, it's a valid question. So first, what is the benefit of serving meals family style? And again, family style meals means just basically putting the food that you're having for a meal at the table and letting your children serve themselves and serve what they want and putting that on their plates themselves. So thinking about Familystyle, I kind of think about it's almost like a buffet, but with not that many options, right? Because it's at home and it's your meals and it's your family meals. Or like, holiday meals tend to be like this. We tend to serve holiday meals family style where we kind of put out all the dishes and we let our kids pick what they want to eat. So what are the benefits of this? Because I get a lot of parents that are like, there's no way we could do that. It would just be so crazy and chaotic. And, it is a little more time and effort, and it sometimes can be a little more messy. But let me just share with you some benefits for doing this for your family. So first benefit that I'll share quickly, just to kind of get it out of the way, is that this actually helps kids improve fine motor skill development. And it may not seem like much, but really giving a child the opportunity to scoop and plate things and pick up bowls, be able to handle utensils, actually gives them the ability to better develop their fine motor skills with eating, which is so important. We want our children to feel empowered about eating and how they eat. And, you can even start doing this with kids as young as 2, really. As long as they can, handle things. And of course, you want to be careful with dishes that may be hot and all of that, but giving your child the opportunity to serve themselves can be really empowering for them and help them just feel more confident in handling utensils. So, Kel, that is a great question. So Kel's asking any age that kids should be using utensils. So I really encourage parents to let your kids start handling appropriate utensils, including like spoons and things like that, really as soon as they can start eating. So you can do that for your little babies when they are able to start eating, and really when they have that skill of putting hand to mouth. You don't have to, force them to use utensils, obviously, but just encouraging them and giving them the opportunity. So, for example, our youngest is 8 months old, and we basically set her up in her high chair, and I give her things that are appropriate for her to eat on her little tray. And I usually just give her a spoon, and she's figuring it out, but I think just giving them the opportunity helps them become more coordinated over time, especially if they can watch and observe other family members using utensils. So don't feel worried. I mean, of course, certain things you want to be careful with, like forks, and you want to make sure that they're appropriate for your child. But you can start early. And again, letting your child serve their own food at the table. This is for a little bit older children, but it can really help them develop those fine motor skills involved with plating their own food and just helping them feel really confident when it comes to utensils and being around food and handling food. So that's the first benefit of Familystyle meals. I'm just jumping over to my notes really quick. The second benefit of serving your meals Familystyle is that it encourages a willingness to try new foods. And again, this may seem really counterintuitive because as parents, we often plate the things on our children's, or we serve our children the foods that we feel like they need to eat, right? So oftentimes if we're plating food for our children, we'll put the vegetables and, the grains or whatever it is that we feel like they need to be eating or they need to try. And even if you're not forcing your child to try what's on their plate, but you're still plating it for them, it can create it can make them less likely to try it because they're not doing it on their own and they're not doing it out of their own self-will. And it seems really counterproductive, but if we as parents are more relaxed around food and we're not, forcing or probing or trying to coerce our children to eat certain things, then they will be more likely to want to try it on their own. And guys, research has shown this. And I know it's hard as parents. We want to be the ones in the driver's seat when it comes to how we feed our kids. And it comes from good intention. We want to make sure that our kids are getting the foods that they need. But oftentimes it's like a non-verbal communication cue that we're giving our kids when we're like, here, let me put this on your plate. And it's kind of like subconsciously we're trying to get them and coerce them to eat certain things. And kids are so smart, and they really do pick up on those behaviors and those feeding tactics that we approach our children with. So really, the best approach is to just have the food available on the table and let your child pick from the dishes that are available and serve themselves. And actually, they'll be more willing to try things when they can be the ones to decide, I want to try that, or I want to put that on my plate. And especially if your child is the one to serve it on their plate, even if they're not eating it, just the simple act of them putting it on their plate is a sign that they're willing and curious to possibly try that food. And again, this is a good thing. Like, this is a more effective tactic for getting them to try different foods, rather than us being the ones saying, here, like, here's this vegetable dish, or here's this dish that I really want you to try. Like, if we back off and let our kids be the ones to decide what they want to eat from what we have served and how much they want to eat, they're going to be more willing to try different foods. Hey, Jessica, thanks for joining. Especially if they see different family members at the table trying that food. So a big question that I get from parents is, well, what about vegetables? Like, my kid would never plate vegetables for themselves and eat them willingly unless I force them. And, I would just push back on that a little bit and say that oftentimes the reasons why kids have strong aversions to vegetables is because that's one of the big food groups that parents tend to push on their kids. And so, oftentimes it's just the nature of a child. Like, they don't want to do what they're forced to do. But if they're allowed to do it willingly on their own, and especially if they see other family members trying certain foods, they are going to be curious. And again, they might want to put some on their plate. And even if they're not necessarily eating that food that's on their plate, that they've put on their plate themselves, they are taking a step towards exposure, like putting food on their plate. And even if they're not eating it, but if they're looking at it and checking it out and kind of becoming familiarized with it, like, that's a good chance that they're moving more towards eating that food on their own and eating it willingly. I'll just give a really quick story about this. So I see this all the time with my kiddos. And if you don't know me, I have 5 little ones, ranging between ages of 8 and 8 months. So this is family meals, and meal times for us are just amazing and busy and crazy and messy. So I see this a lot with my 6-year-old and my 4-year-old. So I'll often put, the dishes on the table, and oftentimes there are certain things that they just automatically will be like, I don't want that. And my biggest phrase that I always say to my kids, and I just recommend this all the time to parents to say, is to remind them, you don't have to eat it. Like, no pressure at all. I never tell my kids they have to eat something. And you know what? That makes them more curious and willing to want to try different things. So, they'll react and make comments as soon as I put food on the table, sometimes even before. Like, if they see me making something in the kitchen, they're like, ooh, what's that? Or, ooh, I don't want to try that. Or, I don't want to eat that. That looks gross. And I just tell my kids, and I tell them this all the time, just like, hey, you don't have to eat it. If you don't want to eat it, you don't have to eat it. And that's it. I leave it at that. I don't make them put anything on their plate that they don't want. I just put it on the table. But one thing that I do is, model those behaviors myself. So I'll plate certain things on my plate that I want to eat, that I feel like eating. and just be totally relaxed about it. And oftentimes when my kids see me trying or eating different things, then they become curious to want to try things too, because, you know, kids mimic what they see. So if your kids are seeing you enjoy a variety of different foods, then they're going to be more curious about wanting to try it themselves too. And again, these are things that help keep your mealtime super low pressure and encourage your child to want to try food on their own, which is what we want them to do. We want them to feel empowered with eating. So that's the second benefit of serving meals family style, is that it will encourage your child and increase their willingness to try different foods. Okay. Third, well, these kind of go together, but so the third benefit, and it kind of goes a little bit with what I was talking about, but third benefit of serving meals family style is that it does nurture a positive feeding relationship. So research has shown, again, that parents that use more controlling feeding tactics are more likely to have children that develop a poor relationship with food, or develop, more, or what am I trying to say? Poor eating habits. So that is often a result in children from controlling feeding tactics as parents. I hope that makes sense. I'm going to explain this a little bit more. So what are controlling feeding tactics or feeding strategies? And these are things that we often do as parents. And again, there's, not wanting to shame anyone at all. Like, a lot of this is done from really a place of good intention. We often overstep our boundaries as parents when it comes to how we feed our kids, and do things that are more from a place of control. Like, we want to make sure that our child is eating a certain amount, or they're getting their vegetables in. So we implement certain strategies that are more coming from a place of control, where it doesn't allow our child to be the one to decide how much they want to eat or what they want to eat from what we're serving them. And that controlling feeding strategies can make a stressful feeding relationship between us and our child. So having family style meals can create a more positive relationship between you and your child and how you're feeding them, because essentially you're saying, as a parent, here is the food that I've provided. We decide what we're serving, of course, for a meal, but our child gets to be the one to decide what they want to eat from what you have served and what you've made available, and how much they want to eat. And doing it in that manner versus saying, here's your plate, here's what I put on your plate, here's what you have to eat, or you have to try a bite of this. Again, we often do those things as parents because we're just concerned. Like, it comes from good intention. We want to make sure that our child is eating. And more than anything, as parents, we just want our children to be healthy. But sometimes we don't realize that the different approaches we take to feeding our kids can actually be detrimental to their health and to their relationship with food and their bodies. So actually, again, I always say, the motto that I like to say, and I'm going to type it in here, is parents provide, child decides. So basically what that means is that we are the ones providing the food, of course, like we are the ones saying, here's what is being served, but our child gets to decide what they want to eat from what we've served and how much, or even if they want to eat at all. So when you're serving meals family style, you are creating opportunities for that. You are essentially making that the landscape of meal times and saying, okay, here's what's available, and you get to decide what you want to put on your plate. So I hope that helps. I hope I explained that. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. I'll be checking the comments in just a second. So the last benefit of serving meals family style, and how this can help your child actually eat better, is family meals allow your kids to eat an amount that is right for them. So this is another way that we often overstep our boundaries as parents when it comes to how we feed our kids, is that we somehow think that we know how much our child needs to eat. And the truth of the matter is, nobody knows how much your child needs to eat except your child. And by realizing that, sometimes it takes so much pressure off of us as parents, because it's like, whew, like I don't have to be the one to sit there and figure out like how much does my child need to eat. Unless your child has a, some kind of medical condition, or like a really severe feeding disorder, they innately know how much, like the quantity of food that their bodies need to grow at a rate that is right and perfect for them. And again, it takes so much pressure off of us as parents, because we don't have to figure that out. We don't have to force them or tell them, like, you have to take a bite of this, or you have to take 2 bites of this. Again, when we do that, we are overstepping our boundaries as parents, and we're not allowing our child to feel empowered in their own bodies and to eat an amount that is right for them. And this can be really scary for parents, because a lot of the times our kids may not eat that much, and we're like, oh, there is no way that my kid is eating enough to grow and to stay, healthy. Like, a lot of times that's a concern. Or we could be on the opposite side of things. Like, we may see our child with a really big appetite eating a lot, and that might concern us too. We might be freaked out by how much our child is eating. But it's really important as parents that we allow our children to do what they innately know how to do best, and that is to regulate their intake. And if we don't overstep our boundaries, if we don't question how much they're eating, it is for them to eat, like, we need to give them regular meals and snacks. But every time we feed our kids, we don't have to worry that they're, eating too much or eating not enough. Like, if we give them the opportunity, will eat exactly what they need to help their bodies grow at a rate that is right for them. So serving your meals family style will help you with that. It'll help your child with that. And give them the opportunity to, again, eat an amount that is right for them, not what we think they need to eat. So I hope that helps you guys. I actually have a whole blog post about this. And in the blog post, I talk more about how you can start with family meals. So if you want to have family meals at home, it's really simple. I chat more about this in my blog post. And also some commonly asked questions about serving your meals family style. So I am going to put a link to my blog post in here. And then I'm just going to check some of these comments really quick. Let's see. Oh, that's so funny. So Lisa's saying, my toddler requests everything I ate during pregnancy, like almonds, avocados, onions, pickles, quesadillas, and a few other things. I love that. That's so awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Cal. Thanks for your feedback. And for those of you that are here live, I appreciate you being here. So check out the blog if you're interested in reading more about this approach to feeding your kids and the benefits of serving meals family style, and how this one simple change at mealtime can really help your child feel so much better about eating, and can really take a lot of the stress out about eating too, and make family meals just more peaceful and fun for you and your kids. So check out the blog. Okay. Second, I have a really fun announcement, and that is I am going to be offering a free webinar online in a couple weeks. And this is going to be all about Halloween and candy. So if you are a parent, and I know many parents that I've talked with often feel stressed or overwhelmed about the incredible influx of candy that is coming with Halloween, right? If you're a parent and you can relate, or if you feel stressed about this, let me know. But a lot of parents I talk to tend to get really overwhelmed about all the Halloween candy, and not just Halloween, but just holidays in general. There can be a lot more sweets and treats and desserts, foods that your kids might not normally eat. And what do you do about that? How do you handle that? How can you approach those things in a way that doesn't backfire? It doesn't make your child feel more obsessive about candy or desserts. If you guys have ever watched Jimmy Kimmel's, my husband and I watch this every year, and it always blows my mind. I'm trying to remember what it's called. He does like a segment where he has parents trick their kids and tell their kids that they ate all their Halloween candy, and then the parents like record their kids' reactions. Have you guys, if you're watching, have you ever seen that? I am always amazed at how some of these kids react when they find out, or when their parents tell them that they ate all their Halloween candy. Like, some of these kids go berserk, off the wall, like in beast mode, like punching walls, screaming. I mean, kids really get excited about Halloween because of all the candy and the things that they don't normally get access to. And this can be a real issue between parents and kids. And I want to make this simple for you guys. I want to help you feel empowered going into this holiday, and know, like, how do I best approach this with my child? How can I help them enjoy the holiday and have access to the candy that they want without going overboard? And how, if you want to learn strategies on how to do this, I would love to invite you to my upcoming webinar in a couple weeks. It is on Wednesday, October 24th, so like a week before Halloween. I want to make sure to give you all kinds of tricks and strategies that are effective that you can use with your kids so that you feel confident going into this holiday. And it's totally free. So all you have to do is sign up for it. I'm going to put a link to it right here. Okay, so I put a link to the webinar page that should take you to it. It's GoToWebinar. It takes you to a page, and all you have to do is sign up with your email, and you'll get a link to join. Even if you can't make the webinar live, I would still love you to join, because I can send you a link to the recording if you can't be there live. So if you are wanting to learn just some really effective strategies for keeping the peace between you and your kids during Halloween, especially with all this overload of candy that's coming in, please sign up for the webinar. I would love to have you. It's going to be jam-packed with a lot of great information, and there will be a time for Q&A. So if you have questions that you'd like to ask, you can definitely do that in the webinar. So yeah, it's hilarious. I know that Jimmy Kimmel segments they always just blow my mind. Okay, I'm going to check through the comments really quick before I hop off to see if there were any other questions. Hey, Rachel, thanks for joining. So you asked, what are your thoughts about utensils? That's a great question. I answered. Uh-oh. Am I still here? Okay, my computer is like freaking out. Okay, hopefully I'm still here. Sorry, my computer wants to sign off. So I'm going to wrap this up because I think my computer is about to log me out. But Rachel, I answered that at the beginning of the video, just talking about, and I also put the link to my blog so you can get more info about that. Jess, I want to answer your comment really quick. You say, I do find that we can implement that in our home, but it does get difficult when you have others feeding your child, like grandparents, caregivers. I often hear, finish your plate. It's probably just a work in progress, but any suggestions of how to best go about that? Jess, thank you so much for asking. That is such a great question. And that is, I want you to know you're not alone. I get so many questions about that. Like, you might feel comfortable with how you're feeding your kids in your own home. But once your kids are in the hands of other caregivers, it can be a completely different story. And I am actually writing a whole blog post about that. It's going to be coming out in the next couple weeks, and I'm going to do a whole video just about that because that is such a common question that I hear parents struggling with. So stay tuned. I'm going to make sure I answer that in depth in the next couple weeks, okay? All right, guys, thank you so much again for joining and for all the great questions and feedback. And if I can do anything to help support you, if you have any additional follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the comments. I will be coming back to check those for you and we'll make sure to answer them, all right? Have a great week. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.